It's the time.
Let's go.
It's 6 o'clock in the morning. Hi, everybody. I know it's a much more reasonable time of day in Europe, but here in Western Colorado, not so much. But happy to be here with you today. Um, we'll go ahead and get started. We really welcome you here, and this session is for you. So feel free to chime in the chat, and it's okay too if you just need to share your audio for a minute and ask a question or something like that. Chat's probably the easiest. We'll try to pay attention to it, and of course, we want to learn from you as well. And we know that you have been through many things with your teams, and you know lots of things that we don't know. But we're gonna work on this together, and it'll be fun to do. So our session today is don't waste your life supporting your team's dev environments. We're going to be using DDEV as an example, but the same strategies apply to any of the other local development environments. So let's do some introductions. I'm Randy Fay. I'm the maintainer of DDEV. I've been doing it for about 5 years now, and I have a long history with the Drupal community as well. A lot of Drupal cons in the past. And Truls.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm Truls. And as you can see, I have 2 sign language interpreters with me today, so they can translate my Norwegian sign language to spoken English. So I'm from Norway, and I work at a company called Frontcom now. And yeah, and earlier I've been focusing on DDEV on a clean Drupal in my last workplace, and now I'm working on DDEV on several other CMSs.
Excellent. And we really appreciate Miriam and Frederick. We really appreciate your work interpreting today. Makes a big difference. Thank you. Okay, DDEV is one of, I think, 3 leading Docker-based local development environments these days. And it's for Drupal, but it's also for many other CMSs. The other 2, Lando probably has the biggest number of users, and Doxel. All 3 are excellent, and they have the same ideas behind them. And I think that even though we're going to be DDEV focused today, I think you'll be able to understand exactly how to translate the exact same concepts to Lando or Doxel. And of course, the strategy is the thing, not the specifics. So, both Truls and I have worked at least a bit with Lando and Doxel, and we can try to answer your questions, but I'm sure that you can answer questions with them as well. So, okay, so here's what we're going to do today. We're just going to go through just the quickest introduction to DDEV. Let me just see people. I don't want to do too much introduction to DDEV if you already are familiar with it, but I'll just do the quickest introduction. Look at that! There's 45 people in here. Who would have thunk it? We do appreciate you. So I'll just do the quickest DDEV introduction. And then we're going to talk about configuration management strategies in general. Then we're going to share a project. So we're just going to do a very simple, we're going to go through this process that we're promoting with configuration management. And we'll share a project, and you'll be able to do it yourself if you want to. You can follow along with us either in Gitpod or you can share with your local environment. So we'll welcome you to that. And then we'll talk about some specifics with settings file management dealing with different developer environments and operating systems. And we've got a slide for tips and tricks. And of course, we'd love to hear from you about your questions and issues and what's important to you. So now I have to quit clicking on the shared screen and actually click on my screen. I've had this problem more than once. So what used to happen, I think some of you have been around in the bad old days. Teams used to have, you'd install Apache yourself, and you'd install PHP yourself, and things would go wrong, and somebody'd be on Windows, and somebody'd be on Linux, and somebody'd be on Mac, and the senior developers who are supposed to be working on strategic things or hard things or whatever instead spend their whole day keeping the junior developers' sites going. And that's what we don't want to happen anymore. These days, people are using more Docker-based and Git-managed projects with DDEV or Lando or Doxel, and that makes it so that it can be set up the same on whatever operating system or environment that they have. And so the big deal is not just that the senior dev gets to not work on helping the juniors all the time. It's also that a new developer gets a much more satisfying experience because they have quicker onboarding. So, okay, so Alexei has a question. The question when containerizing Drupal to split or not split Nginx and FPM. So that is there's a Docker idea. There's a standard Docker idea that you should only have one process in each container. DDEV has 3 processes in the main web container, so it's worked out well. But it's a matter of choice rather than purity. So if you do DDEV, you don't have to think about that at all. So that would be the answer: is use DDEV and don't worry about it. But thank you for that question, and do feel free to use the chat, and we'll try to pay attention to it. So just a quick start on DDEV, just so that we're not going ahead without showing anybody what's going on. I can take any project. I'm just going to make a project. I've probably got a project called Junk. I'm going to make a project called Junk 2. Oh, I've already got a project called Junk 2. I'm going to make a project called Junk 3. So let's just assume this project has a lot of stuff in it. And I'm just going to make an index.html. If I had a project that I was just checking out, I would just do a DDEV config on it. And it would detect the project name from the directory it was in. It would it tries to detect the doc root location. For most projects, it can figure it out. Here, the doc root is the current directory. And then it would try to detect the project type. It usually is successful with that. Here, it's using the default PHP because I don't actually have any code in here. And now I can do a DDEV start. So I just did a DDEV config in an existing project. Now I can do a DDEV start. And then I can just do I can just visit the project. It'll tell me where the project is. See, it's junk3.ddev.site. So I can just click that, and there it is, and it just shows us the big fancy content that I developed. So that is most of what goes on with DDEV. We can do a DDEV import DB. This project doesn't have a database, but the one that we'll work on in the example does. And you can see the Drupal 9 quick start. Let me just click through to that. Here's the Drupal 9 quick start. You see that you can create a Drupal 9 site from the regular Drupal recommended Composer project with just these few steps. So that would be a slightly more ambitious thing than my index.html. So that's DDEV in a nutshell. Obviously, there are more commands that you can use. I can type DDEV and see them all. There's just make that a little bigger. There's import files, there's import DB, there's some things, you know, restart, start, stop, things that you expect. So okay.
Yep. So as you've just seen, like Randy showed us, that it's very easy to start up with a project, and the project often has some basic dev configurations. And the example that you just saw with the ddev config is not something that you have to do every time. It's just a first-time setup thing. And when you do that, then when you make changes, and the developers need to fetch these changes, you can use this system. So you also have the opportunity to add several other services, such as Solar, Elasticsearch, or whatever your needs might be to use on a Docker basis. And also, you can also import from databases, from different kinds of files.
In many different ways.
So you have many different ways of showing this and importing. And you can also import from different hosting providers. Or you might also use a module called Docker by proxy, which we will show you. Stage by proxy, which we will show you eventually. And there are also a couple of things that are more advanced where you would need your own Docker file to do these things, but you have these options as well. So like I mentioned, when you make changes, it's really important that your dev team also gets these changes and can start working in the correct last updated config. But when we have a big team, it's also good to have a guideline of how to do things so that you avoid a big mess. So maybe a team lead or a gatekeeper kind of would have responsibility of making all the changes and compare the production and test or stage development stages and make sure it's all good. So I'm thinking we can just start playing around a bit.
Yeah, we'll do the we'll actually work together on a project in just a moment. And so one thing I want to mention is you saw me do a DDEV config. That's usually something that gets checked in. So that just creates, you see here in configuration management strategies that we are going to check in the .ddev config.yaml. Let me just show you what that is here. Here's the config.yaml. It's got lots of documentation down below, but it basically has a name and a doc root. And this is what we created with the DDEV config statement. So we're going to check this in our strategy, and an average user won't need to do the DDEV config because the config.yaml already exists. And then there may be Docker Compose, as Truls was saying, there may be extra services that have been added, like Solar. So you would check in Docker compose.yaml, but Docker compose.star.yaml. So like a Docker compose.elasticsearch.yaml that has the Elasticsearch stuff in it. And then any commands, we'll actually do a command with the. So we'll do that when we get there, and any custom Docker file we would add as well. So basically, even though you can do things step by step with DDEV, the team will be using the same configuration, and people won't have to do that. They won't be thinking about that. So, okay, we are going to actually.
Yeah, maybe.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Maybe we can show one thing. What we have provided here.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and
for those who might be wondering what we already have.
We're going to go ahead and do playtime now. What we're going to do is you're welcome to join us. You can do exactly what we're going to do. We have a real life upstream site, teamdemo.thephase.us. So it's just a silly live site, but it has a database and it has files, and it's a regular umami install. So we're gonna check out the repository. So, oh, sorry. So here's the repository that we're going to use, and what you can do if you'd like to, and we'd love to have you play along, is just go to this URL. I'm going to put this in the chat. Got to put it in the chat in the right place. So you can just go to this URL, and you can check that out if you want and work with it locally, or you can also do it in Gitpod. So you can just click this Gitpod link, and you will end up with, where's my Gitpod? Here's what you'll end up with. You'll end up with it checking out Team Demo, and you will end up with the actual project waiting for you. So it has. Sorry, I'm not a very good user of VS Code. This is VS Code in the browser, and we just want the. It will come up immediately with the actual site wanting to install it, but you can walk through the exact things that we're going to do here by just following the Gitpod link if you want to, and then you can do exactly what we're going to do in the browser. Okay, so you can check out the repo if you want to, either way. And Truls is going to do that. He's going to be the team, and I'm going to be the team lead, and have it together, have the stuff. So here's what I have. And I'm going to do, I've got it, I'm going to do a poll, make sure that I've got everything up to date. And so in this particular case, I need to do a DDEV start and make sure that, and I'm going to bring it up. So my screen is the white background one, and Truls is the dark background one. And you can, and your screen, I can't tell you what your screen is. So there we go. And so on this particular site, as you know, web developers are sometimes check in the vendor directory and sometimes do not check in the vendor directory. In this case, we are going to have a project where the vendor directory is not checked in, which means that we need to run Composer. So we actually, DDEV has a Composer command, so you do not have to have Composer installed on your computer or anything like that. So I'm going to say DDEV Composer install, and it will do the Composer install inside the container with the same PHP version and everything else that we need. You see, it was very quick because there wasn't anything to do, but I have it set up and running now. So that's the style that we have. So if you have checked it out either in Gitpod or local, you can do a DDEV Composer install. Now, we don't want our users to have to do that all the time. So what we're going to do is we're going to automate that so that it happens all the time, even though the vendor directory is not checked in. So what I'm going to do is go into the config.yaml, and I'm going to see if I can do this right off the bat. Say Composer install. So this will add a hook that after we start will automatically do the Composer install in case it hasn't been done before. So I'm just going to test that right quick. I'll just do a DDEV start again, and I did something wrong. I don't remember the syntax of don't remember the syntax of my own hook command. Here's what it's supposed to be like. Oh, I did an exec Composer install. That's not the way I would usually do it, but we'll just do that.
Just added
A hyphen.
hyphen before the Composer.
Let me just see if this works right quick. There's many more than, oh, sorry, a hyphen. You mean a, that's what you do.
Yeah, after
That's
post
what
start.
you get for. Oh, sorry, it's a, yeah, sorry, that's the whole problem right there. So I could have done a Composer install right here, and that would have worked. Thank you. It's always better to be not trying to show things while you're not thinking. And I still didn't have it. Oh, there we go. I still didn't have it right, did I? So there it did the Composer, just doing a start. For anybody doing a start, it would do that for them. So now I'm going to check that in. Thank you, Truls. Okay, so we're just going to do it like this. I'm just missing the, so. I'm going to push that.
And also remember to update documents.
And Truls can then pull that, and he will now have he will not now have to do he doesn't have to do it anymore. He doesn't have to do that. Remember that DDEV Composer install anymore. Oh, we've got We've got comments. I'm going to take a look at your comments in just a second. So now on the dark screen, when Truls does a DDEV start, it will do the post start hook, and he won't have to remember that anymore. Switch to the white screen, Christoph says. Okay. Yeah, we're deliberately both sharing at the same time so that you can see me pretending to be the team lead and Truls pretending to be the team. So that's the reason for that. We're doing it deliberately so you can pin the one that matters. Now Truls didn't have to think about remembering all the things that he needed to do when starting a project. He didn't have to remember the composer install anymore. Now he just does a DDEV start, and it should have done the composer install, but it didn't. So, so had live demos, just the way it is. So if you look at your Git log, Truls, I think you'll see that didn't get that somehow. Yeah, you don't have you didn't get that code, so either I didn't push it or, but it's there. So the last you also don't have your update to the README that you did, but that's all right. But it's definitely there. You'll have it in half a moment, I know. You probably have forked it. You probably forked it. You're probably on your fork.
Yeah, I'm gonna revert back.
Yeah, it's all good. So let's take a look at what we were going to show next. So that what we did here is we're just trying to make it easier for the team. So we're trying to make it easier for the team to not have to remember things. So we're putting in things that will make it work. So we're just going to do one more thing that would be great for a team. And so DDEV has hosting integration, has integration with Aqua and Platform and Pantheon, and it's simple. So you can do whatever your hosting situation is or whatever your upstream is. You can do that with anything. So we're going to do that, and I am going to, instead of trying to do it by finger memory, I am going to grab the provider that I made already, and I'm going to say, check out that. So I'm just going to add a prod.yaml provider, and this is a very simple thing. It has a couple of environment variables here, and the auth command isn't used, and we have a simple curl to pull a database, and then we have a simple curl to pull files. And so I should be able to DDEV pull, and I've named this one, I've just named this one prod. So I can just do a DDEV pull prod. Yours might be called Aqua or something like that, but I'm going to do a DDEV pull prod.
Right, now I have it local on my machine.
Ah, there we go. Yeah. So this is going to replace my database and pull everything down here. and it automatically imports the database so that I have a running live site. This is a great thing for your users to have, so that they can just run everything locally. So all the artifacts are pulled down locally. So as soon as this is done importing, I'll show you what the result is, and I will push it so that Truls can show that he gets the same exact situation, which is what we want, is all of our developers having the same thing. So I'm going to go to I'm going to do a DDEV launch, which is just a shortcut that pulls up my local site, teamdemo.ddev.site. And there it is. I have all the files. I have the database loaded. Everything is ready. Now Truls can do the exact same thing. So go ahead and pull that and do a DDEV pull on prod. Truls.
Yeah, I need the configure.
So you don't have the prod yet. So yeah, so you have to do a git pull. I think you have a different, if you do a git log, oh, did I not push it?
No, I think you need to push
Oh,
it first.
sorry. Paying attention to too many things. Now it's there, sorry.
Yeah, now I'm pulling.
There we go. Now you can do a DDEV pull prod. Sorry about that. So now you don't have to teach every developer exactly how to go out to the production site and grab the database and grab the files and how to import them properly. So now if Truls does a DDEV launch, he'll have the exact same project with the database and files that I have. And PHP is getting going. This is a lot faster with the. Are you on Mac, Truls?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So if you notice that mine came up really fast because I have mutagen turned on, and Truls doesn't have mutagen turned on. But there it is. Everything is all up there and ready. So now we have our developers able to not have to think about Composer install and not have to think about how they get their project from upstream. So they have a database and files. So let's go. I don't see any questions in the chat, so we will just push along. Go back to our slides. You can add custom PHP or Nginx or Apache. If you don't want to check things in, you may want to put them in a config.local.yaml. I work on a project that that doesn't quite work right on the Mac M1 because it uses the MySQL database. And so I have a config.m1.yaml that switches to use MariaDB, which is not the upstream one. Truls will point out later that sometimes individual developers should use global configuration to do things that should not be checked into the project. For example, specifying mutagen or NFS. Rick Stoopman has a question. What are your thoughts on cloud-based development environments such as Gitpod or GitHub code spaces? Well, I think you know the answer to that since I'm encouraging you to use, where is it? I lost it. Anyways, so I lost my Gitpod. Since we're encouraging you to do this in Gitpod, and you could have done that right along with us, I have not tried GitHub code spaces a lot, but a lot of people are using Gitpod and DrupalPod. DrupalPod is based on DDEV, and it's a great thing. So, and you can do everything that we're doing here with it. Go ahead. Did you have something, Truls?
Agreement.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just do a quick mention of some settings file management issues. DDEV is pretty famous for helping you by generating settings files, and it with Drupal it generates a settings.ddev.php. You don't have to remember any database access or anything like that. And you can provide your own config. You can take over any of those files that it generates by removing the DDEV generated from the top and checking in your variant. And you can also disable settings management. And lots of you don't need anybody to create settings for you. So you can just turn that off and you'll be fine. So, and I think I already mentioned that you can, I think we already covered this one, so we'll move on. Oh, let's see. Truls, go ahead and take this one. I think we had you on the, I think we might have lost, we had prompts, and maybe I talked over the top. Earlier we had prompts on where you were supposed to take the slide. Anyway, this one's yours.
Yeah. I thought I wanted to quickly tell you guys about what I shortly mentioned earlier, that sometimes it's a challenge when you have a MacBook Air, like a small computer, a small hard drive, and you need to work several places with like 40, 50, or 100 projects at the same time. Your hard drive really quickly gets overloaded. So how can we make a change here so that we don't have to download all of the files into your local machine like we just did in the presentation? So a good way to do it is to use a module like we feel is very useful. It's called Stage by Proxy. Here you have the possibility to get your files in there and point that towards production instead of downloading it to your computer locally. And you can also use that, or you can also use DDEV's import project. And I've also worked with teams previously where it's been very important to have good, in my experience, it's been very important to have really good documentation. So, for example, when we have onboarding of new people, that can happen quickly or easily, or when a project manager comes in who is not a programmer themselves, we can have easy step-by-step instructions of how to do stuff, how to do a QA, for example. So writing good documentation as if you're writing to a 6-year-old is really useful in this setting. And if you see the repository on GitHub, I can show it on my screen. For example, this is the repo for the project that we were just showing you. So here we've made like a really, really simple step-by-step how of the setup process, not having lots of a wall of text, but just short, simple instructions. And it's also really important to maintain that documentation so that you don't forget things as you go. And like we just the composer install that we just did on post start, we can also have that removed in the last sentence here. So now we don't need this step anymore because we've already included it. And that will keep the documentation really, really short and simple and be useful for everybody. And then also, many companies like to have good internal documentations of how to deal with launches and what procedures are going for whose responsibility for what, and making sure that people don't push directly to production. That we have limitations on who can pull from what and in what way.
And you can manage that in several ways.
And like I also mentioned, my work at Frontcom now would deliver a lot of Drupal stuff, but we also have our own, we have several platforms. So using a global command can make it easier to have the developers receive things for the system they are currently working on, and have specific commands for fitting for their needs. So if it's Drupal related, for example, Twig
debug.
Debugging, yeah.
You turn on Twig debug, or stuff that we don't really use in Drupal. We can add that as well. So we can have that in our own folder.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, let's go ahead and we want to find out what your questions are, what your experiences are, what you have hit here before we run out of time, because we know that you are experts in this territory, and we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to, if you want to turn on your audio or video and ask a question, you can. If you want to ask in the chat, you're welcome to. So not everybody at once, though. Let me ask you what environments you're typically using. Are most of you on Mac, and how many of you are on M1? If you can I guess we should have created a poll, but a lot of Mac people, Drupal people, a lot of Mac people. Oh, there's a Q&A tab. Yeah. Okay, so we have a Q&A tab, huh? So Olivier asks is it working great with WSL2? DDEV works wonderfully with WSL2, and DDEV uses a domain name by default, star.ddev.site, so it doesn't have to add things to Etsy hosts. But that is a confusion. That is a problem that happens with WSL2. But WSL2 is fantastic, fast, wonderful. It might be the best place to work with DDEV.
Yeah.
It works great with the team. It works same as everything else, so it's great. I've worked with both DDEV and Lando, and both are great. Do you consider one better than the other? And about Doxel, well,
yeah,
the one that you're using is probably, I mean, if you're not having trouble, then you're not, you can't know everything all the time and work with everything all the time. You just do what you can do.
Exactly.
You might, as a maintainer of DDEV, you might think that I would be partial to DDEV. I am, but it's got lots of good stuff. All of us in the community have worked hard on it, but the one that you have that's working for you is really good. So What are your thoughts from Rick? What are your thoughts on cloud? Oh, and we already did that. Oh, you put that here as well. Cedric says, how do you handle downloading DB dumps from Aqua? Let's see if my screen is still shared here. So DDEV comes with built-in Aqua integration. And so if we go to providers, there is an Aqua example here with full documentation. And what you do is put the project ID in, and that's mostly all you have to do. And then you do, well, that's not entirely true. You have to put the secrets either into the local or global config of DDEV, and then you change the example to aqua.yaml, and then you do a DDEV pull Aqua. So yeah. I think that'll work for you, Cedric. Let's see if there's more in the chat here. Olivia says Doxel is not so great with WSL2 with naming and stuff. I think the problem with WSL2 is that there's really two different machines going on with two different networking environments. And that's why DDEV's strategy of using DNS works pretty well. But there are issues with that. So any other questions? Let's see. All of the resources are here on this last page, and the slide deck is at tiny.cc/localdev. I thank you all for coming. Truls, do you have anything you want to close with?
No, not really. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for following in and tuning in. And hopefully we'll see you physical, like have a physical meeting. See you in person next time, hopefully.
One last question. David Rodriguez says, hi all, I was a supporter of DDEV as a company on the GitHub sponsor, and I'd like to continue to support DDEV local as a tool. So that's something that I'm working on in this, it's a top priority for this coming release cycle. There's been some things to work out with ownership of the org on GitHub and things like that. But I hope to have it set up so that you can financially contribute. It's a community, of course, and we're all contributing, but financial contribution will be important for the sustainability of the project, and we'll be doing that soon. DDEV has a bright future. It's fully supported. It's still going, even though the company that used to support it went away. We've had lots of releases since that happened, and everything is going well. And a number of companies have stepped up and said that they want to support it, and wonderful individuals like David want to support it, and I hope that you all will as well. So it looks like we've got everybody. Thank you, everybody very much. Thank you, Truls. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you, Frederick. And I know that
thank you as well.
The next thing to get on.
Thank you as well, Randy.
Right. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Bye.